Hi, this is Bharti and welcome to another episode of TFI Insights. And today we have with us Chris Bastian, Senior Vice President and CTIO of SCTE. Chris, first of all, welcome to the show. If we look at cable, the first impression they would get is just dumb pipes where the data moves back and forth. It's not when we talk about 5G and all the latest technology, we talk about all those AI, ML, all those crazy stuff. So can you talk a bit about, just to change that perception about, how cable industry or cable technologies are also using all these latest technologies, because we, as good as 5G and all those things is, when it comes to real work, even this interview, I want to have a wired network, wired connection. So talk a bit about that.
Believe me, we do hear that a lot about the dumb pipes moniker, and having worked in telecom my entire career and in the cable industry for over the last 20 years. Nothing could be further from the truth of how telecommunication networks are serving customers today. They're actually extremely intelligent. All of the latest technology trends, and basically my job here is keeping a pulse on all of the trends, not only in the cable industry, but in all technical industries. The telecommunication industry and cable in particular is harnessing those emerging technology trends. For example, network function virtualization. We used to have what we would call big iron devices in our hub sites, where all of the functions were being provided in a purpose-built box. And with network function virtualization, we are moving that functionality up into data centers and using a commoditized standard computing device. So, and the purpose of this interview, and we're going to get into, I think in a minute, the Explorer program, is just how the cable industry is focused on harnessing all of these emerging technology trends.
You mentioned, those commodity hardware. If you look at, telco industry, it was black boxes, all those proprietary software, but now everything is moving towards, either you call it white boxes, depending on right now the politically correct environment. We may have to change those phrases at some point, but we are also leveraging a lot of open source technology. So can you talk a bit about those? That will kind of create a very good segue towards the Explorer initiative. So talk a bit about the change where you're moving gradually away from those proprietary technologies, black boxes, towards much more commodity hardware and commodity software.
What I've always appreciated about the cable industry is we're very collaborative. The companies, the large network operators, and the vendor community, we work very closely together to harness a common vision of what we need to provide in the telecommunications network. And the one technology protocol, access protocol, that is unique to the cable industry is DOCSIS. And that stands for Data Over Cable System Interface Specification. And that basically is the protocol that controls the flow of information from those hub sites that I mentioned earlier to the customers' houses. And that is the proprietary piece, if you will, of that's unique to the cable industry. But even that is becoming much more common and similar to other access technologies. You mentioned earlier about the wireless technologies. For the longest time, we used QAM in DOCSIS, and now we're using OFDM on the downstream and OFDMA on the upstream, which is analogous to what 5G is using in the wireless networks. So the purpose of SCTE, the purpose of all of this collaboration in the cable industry, is to set that common cable technology vision and quickly march towards it.
Now, since we're talking collaboration, now let's talk about the Explorer initiative. Talk a bit about what is the initiative all about.
Historically, the cable industry has been focused on our networks, but over the past decade or so, we're looking more and more at providing the actual services as well that ride over those networks. We started with, going back 20 years, it was just cable TV, and then there was DOCSIS over cable, which I mentioned, which was introduced in the 1990s, and then there was voice over IP, voice services over the cable network. More recently, the cable industry has gotten into offering security services, home security, and now with this Explorer initiative, we're looking at other services And we realize, not everything is invented within the cable industry. And the focus of the Explorer program is to bring everybody to the table, the network operators, the service providers, everybody around the table, and that collaboration that I mentioned amongst that we've had for decades around the cable industry. We want that type of collaboration amongst all of our standards members, so that they can, whatever service you're talking about, whether it's remote learning, whether it's telemedicine, that we have that vision again, that common vision. What do we need to do to optimize that service running over these cable access networks?
The fact is that now the lines are blurring between software companies versus any specific industry. We have seen that a lot in the wireless, because everything is software defined. Networks are software defined. All those companies are leveraging technology from IBM. So talk about the IBM is also involved with the Explorer initiative. Talk a bit about their involvement and how you are also working with these software companies who literally have nothing to do with the network in general. Because, as I said, lines are blurring.
The Explorer program is to get the word out that we want everybody to join together and build these services over these networks together. So the large software companies that you mentioned, they wouldn't think of joining a cable-based standards program. It's just not something they would naturally think of. A lot of times they're building and just assuming that the network is a cloud, just like a black box, that you provide your service into the store, the app store, and it's just going to work flawlessly. But what you really want to do is you want to get under the hood and understand that network layer a little bit more, and how can you optimize that network? Because each service has a slightly different profile, different requirements, list of requirements to perform optimally. And if you can work together with that network provider, you can optimize what the network is providing, whether it's speed, capacity, latency, security, reliability, but whatever is unique to your application. Working with the standards program, you'll be able to optimize that service.
IBM is, when it's come to AIML, IBM is a big, monolith, big player there. How is CTE leveraging AI and ML? You did touch upon that in the beginning when we talked about, but can you elaborate that? And it will also kind of explain the collaboration that is going on there with companies like IBM and many others.
Our networks, we're reaching tens of millions of subscribers. And those networks throw off a tremendous amount of telemetry about how the network is performing. And historically, when we're talking about trending and performance management, it would be a very manual-based procedure. And so the network operators and the vendor community supporting them are looking at that tremendous data set, and how can you apply artificial intelligence and machine learning to optimize. Again, it's all about optimizing the service. So how can you look at those data sets and optimize whatever that service is you're trying to optimize? I'll just say quickly a couple of examples of that. We have these nodes, optical nodes, that are out in the networks. And a large-scale network operator will typically have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of these fiber nodes scattered geographically across their service area. And when a certain threshold is surpassed, whether it's with the capacity for that area, the network operator needs to consider a node split. But those node splits are very capital intensive and very manually driven. You have to dispatch trucks and install those nodes out in those geographic areas. So they need to prioritize where they're going to focus their limited resources on performing those node splits. That is a very popular AI project right now. I've seen that pop up. I talk with dozens of network operators, and they've all launched AI programs focused on that particular problem, that's unique to a network operator. So the standards program brings all of these players together, and rather than every network operator reinventing the wheel a dozen times, they can commonly agree on what needs to be in that type of AI program, develop that technology once, and then share that. That goes back to the collaboration again, share that amongst all of the network operators that are in this standards program. So the second part of your question about IBM, We were thrilled that they signed on to be involved, and they've been very involved with our AI program. They just bring so much to the table, not only in AI, but in telemedicine, our other Explorer programs, working groups that we have going on, whether it's telemedicine, aging in place, smart cities. They're just a very recognized brand. They are very deep in knowledge. They bring a lot of subject matter experts to the table to assist us with these service network interface issues.
If you look at the cable industry, what are the challenges that are there for them? Because as we were talking earlier, that the perception is that it's just the pipes running data back and forth. But whether it's come to last mile or whatever, new technologies like AR, VR, which are consuming a lot of bandwidth, or people are consuming. Beyond that, industrial IoT, a lot of things, edge is there. So from your perspective, what are the new challenges that either is there for the cable industry, or cable industry is setting for itself to stay ahead of the curve?
For the longest time in the industry, it was striving for the 1 gig connection. So the 1G network achieving 1 gigabit per second speeds. We're beyond that now. Over 80% of U.S. households have access to a 1 gig connection, and we still need to, don't get me wrong, we still need to make sure that the entire nation can get to those levels, wherever you're located. But now we're planning for beyond that, and we have the 10G initiative. So compared to the 5G networks of wireless, where the G stands for generation, with the 10G program in cable, that's literally the speed of having a speed to an individual connection, an individual home of 10 gigabits per second. So much of the marketing and so much of aspiring over the past couple of years has been driven by speeds. A lot of the commercials that you see, regardless of network, regardless of access network, focus on the speeds. But the 10G network is more than just speed. It's also lower latency, higher security, higher reliability, and that entire package. If you want to learn more, there's a great website out there called the 10G platform that has .com that has more details on what the 10G program is all about. And so what we're striving for, we're on that evolutionary path of transitioning from a 1G network to the 10G platform.
When we do talk about 10G, if you look at this pandemic, people are working remotely. A lot of offices, they're also moving their workforces, and that's where one thing that you mentioned, security becomes critical, latency becomes critical, depending on what you're doing there. How has this pandemic kind of accelerated these decisions? Because while for whatever long duration the pandemic lasts, it will have a lasting impact on the industry itself. A lot of companies who have tasted remote working would want to be that way. So can you talk about the impact, and what does it mean for the cable industry?
I've been very, very proud of our industry, how we've shown in during this pandemic, because you just talk about that shift of how much bandwidth, how much service demand has shifted from the business setting to everybody's individual home. And our company, for example, is like so many others, 100% working from home. And yet that shift, yes, there was a lot of work in making sure that the capacity wasn't exceeded. But the cable industry has shown that we can take that shift with turning some dials. There were some hot spots that needed to be addressed, hence the node splits that I mentioned earlier. But it was turning the dials of the DOCSIS protocol to increase capacity in those service areas so that the customers could receive the bandwidth that they needed to basically keep their lives going, to keep their businesses going, to have the access they need. And not only on the work front, but for education, all of the schools and public schools and universities, letting out and all of the education that's taking place at home. It's that constantly increasing need for high value connectivity in all aspects of our lives that are frankly driving the cable industry and keeping our focus on providing high speeds, lower latency, higher security, higher reliability again.
Chris, if I'm not wrong, you are also organizing the expo, which is coming later this year. Can you talk a bit about that? What is the focus of the expo and what should we look forward to?
We love the expo. Every year it's in the fall. It was going to be in Denver this year, but with so many, countless other conferences this year, we've gone to a completely virtual setting for 2020. And basically it's where the industry meets, and it's going to meet, virtually this year. We're going to have over, 400 exhibitors, and we showcase all of these emerging technology trends and how they're making an impact in the cable industry. So we're going to have over 120 white papers presented, over a dozen. So about 10% of those white papers will be focused on artificial intelligence, machine learning. We'll also have approximately another dozen focused on aging in place and telemedicine. And what's really great about this year's virtual expo is it's all going to be available online, accessible to everybody. So if you check out expo.scte.org, you can get all of the information on the virtual expo. And it's going to be, the initial sessions are going to be streamed live the week of October 12th. And then they'll be available for, they'll be recorded and available after that for streaming at any time. So check that out in about 3 months from now.
Chris, thank you so much for talking to me today. And I look forward to talk to you again, especially around the expo, because there is a lot of interest for me there with AI and ML. So once again, thank you.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Talk with you soon.